Part 1. The Opening Night Surprise. June 12, 2026. Los Angeles. Inside SoFi Stadium, 70,000 people are packed shoulder to shoulder. And outside, hundreds of millions more are tuning in from almost every country on Earth. It's the night the FIFA World Cup officially arrives on American soil. But this is not just a soccer match. It is the loudest, most-watched cultural broadcast the United States will host all year, and it happens to land in the middle of the nation's 250th birthday. Somewhere between the marching drum lines, the flyovers, and the flags of 48 nations being raised one by one, FIFA has built something unusual into the pre-match show, a tightly choreographed spectacle designed to fuse American history with modern, global pop culture. And when the full performer lineup is confirmed, one name generates more headlines, more confusion, and more online debate than any other: Lisa, the Thai-born global superstar of Blackpink, confirmed to perform live at the ceremonial gateway into America's World Cup, in the very year the country is marking 250 years of independence. Within hours of the announcement, the reaction splits along a familiar line. One side is thrilled, finally, a genuinely global icon standing on America's biggest stage, proof the country's cultural gravity still pulls the whole world in. The other side asks a much sharper question. Why does America's most patriotic calendar year, on a stage explicitly tied to national celebration, need a K-pop star who isn't American at all? That single booking, one name on a very long list of performers, becomes a lightning rod. Nobody is questioning Lisa's talent. What they're really arguing about is much bigger. In the year America turns 250, who actually gets to define what American culture looks like when the whole planet is watching? This is the story of how a Thai pop star became one of the most talked-about figures of America's semi-quincentennial year. The historical weight of the milestone she walked into, the strategy behind her rise, the production FIFA built around her, and the debate that's still playing out online right now. Part 2. The significance of America 250 and FIFA. To understand why one performance slot could become this controversial, you have to understand what 2026 actually is for the United States. This is the semi-quincentennial, the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, signed in Philadelphia in 1776. It is the kind of anniversary a country gets once. The last time America marked a milestone like this was 1976, the bicentennial, an entire generation ago. Planning for this moment has been underway for nearly a decade. A congressional, nonpartisan commission began laying the groundwork back in 2016. But in 2025, a new White House-aligned task force took a more visible role in shaping public events tied to the anniversary, organizing everything, from military parades to a great American state fair on the National Mall to a massive international tall ships gathering in New York Harbor. Some of these federally organized events have themselves drawn criticism over transparency and political framing, a detail worth keeping in mind because it's part of the backdrop against which the World Cup ceremony was received. Two cities carry special symbolic weight this year. Philadelphia is quite literally where the country was born, the city where the Declaration was signed and the Liberty Bell once rang. Houston represents something different: modern America, a sprawling, diverse, 21st-century metropolis that didn't exist in any recognizable form in 1776. Both cities are hosting FIFA World Cup matches this summer, and both are scheduled to host special American history-themed programming around Independence Day itself. A round of 16 knockout match in each city, timed deliberately around the national milestone. But before any of that, FIFA had a different opportunity in front of it: the tournament's opening ceremonies. For the first time in World Cup history, this thing wasn't one show, it was three, spread across the three host nations. Mexico City opened the tournament on June 11th. Toronto followed a day later. And that same evening, Los Angeles closed the trilogy, deliberately positioned as the biggest of the three productions, timed to coincide with the United States opening match, and, by extension, with the semi-quincentennial spirit already sweeping the country. For FIFA, this was never just about soccer. A World Cup opening ceremony is one of the most watched non-political broadcasts on the planet. Layering America's once-in-a-lifetime anniversary on top of that audience wasn't an accident. It was a calculated fusion of two of the biggest possible television events happening in the same country in the same year, designed to maximize global attention on American soil. And the lineup FIFA assembled to do it was unlike anything a World Cup opening had ever attempted. Part 3. The debate. Why a global icon for an American milestone? So here's where the debate actually lives, and it's worth laying out both sides honestly, because this isn't a simple story of outrage versus applause. It's a genuine disagreement about what American is supposed to mean in 2026. The traditionalist argument goes something like this. America's semi-quincentennial is supposed to be a celebration of American history, American values, American identity, told presumably through American voices. Critics making this case point to the optics of a Thai pop star, performing in front of imagery evoking founding fathers and national landmarks, on a stage explicitly tied to a milestone about the birth of the United States. For a segment of the audience, particularly those already engaged with the more nationalist framing coming out of the federal 250th Anniversary Task Force, the choice reads as a mismatch. Why look abroad, they ask, when the entire premise of the year is to look inward at 250 years of American story? The counter-argument comes from a very different starting point, that modern American culture has never been a closed system, and pretending otherwise misunderstands both the country and the moment. Supporters of the booking point out that FIFA's own opening ceremony in Los Angeles was explicitly built around the theme of diversity, a 15-minute sequence that opened with a nod to George Washington and closed with a raising of 48 national flags, deliberately sandwiching American history between global culture on both sides. FIFA leadership framed the lineup itself as a reflection of the many diasporas that make up the modern United States, the idea being that American identity in 2026 is not one voice, but many, and that a Korean industry-trained Thai superstar performing in Los Angeles is, in its own way, a very accurate portrait of how culture actually moves through America today. There's a broader cultural current underneath all of this, too. K-pop itself is arguably the most successful example of borderless pop music the industry has ever produced. A Korean industry system that recruits, trains, and launches artists from across Asia and beyond, then exports them to stadiums and streaming charts worldwide. Lisa is a product of that system, born and raised in Bangkok, trained in Seoul, debuted globally with Blackpink, and now operating as a solo star whose audience spans Bangkok, Los Angeles, London, and everywhere in between. To her supporters, that trajectory isn't a contradiction of American cultural identity, it's a preview of what all pop stardom increasingly looks like, everywhere, including in the US charts she now regularly appears on. It's also worth noting what actually happened on the ground. The online reaction wasn't uniformly negative or uniformly celebratory. It split roughly the way most culture-adjacent debates in 2026 tend to split, generationally and ideologically. Younger, more online audiences tended to see the booking as an obvious, even overdue acknowledgement of how globalized American entertainment already is. Older or more traditionally minded commentators tended to see it as one more example of national milestones being diluted by international commercially driven programming. Neither side is factually wrong about the world they're describing. They're just prioritizing different definitions of what an American celebration should look and sound like. What makes this particular case genuinely interesting, rather than just another social media flashpoint, is that it isn't really about Lisa at all. It's a proxy argument for a much older tension in American identity. The country that wrote E pluribus unum, out of many, one, has spent 250 years arguing about how much many it can hold before the one stops meaning anything. FIFA, whether intentionally or not, put that exact tension on a stadium stage in front of a global audience, and then handed the moment to one of the most famous entertainers alive. Part 4. The strategic mastermind behind Lisa's US crossover. To really appreciate why this booking landed when it did, you have to zoom out from the stadium and look at the last few years of Lisa's career. Because nothing about this moment happened by accident. It's the visible tip of a much longer, more deliberate strategy. In 2024, Lisa did something few K-pop idols at her level have ever done. She launched her own record label, Loud, in partnership with a major American label group. The move gave her something most K-pop stars never get: direct creative and business control over her own solo output, independent of her group's parent company, while still plugged into the distribution muscle of the American music industry. It was a structural decision as much as a creative one, and it's the foundation everything since has been built on. Her solo discography backs up the ambition. Her 2021 debut single broke first-week sales records for a female solo act in K-pop history. Her more recent solo era leaned further into a Western pop and electronic sound, built around high-profile collaborations that put her in direct creative conversation with major Western and Latin artists, most notably a genre-blending release with the Italian-American electronic producer Anima, a pairing that signaled she wasn't interested in staying inside a K-pop lane at all. Music was only one front. Lisa also stepped into scripted television, taking on a role in a major HBO prestige drama, a crossover move that put her in front of an entirely different American audience. Prestige TV viewers who may never stream a K-pop single but absolutely watch award-nominated cable television. It's the same playbook other global crossover stars have used for decades. Film and TV as a Trojan horse into mainstream cultural conversation, except executed by someone whose primary fame originated 8,000 miles away. Then there's fashion and luxury branding, where Lisa has spent years building one of the most recognizable global ambassador portfolios in the industry. Front row at Paris runway shows, campaign faces for major European luxury houses, the kind of sustained brand presence that keeps a name circulating in entertainment and fashion press cycles even in months with no new music. Put all of that next to each other, and the FIFA booking stops looking like a surprising outlier and starts looking like the logical next rung on a ladder that's been under construction for years. A World Cup opening ceremony, watched by thundering numbers of Americans who don't otherwise follow K-pop, timed to a year when the entire country's attention is already turned toward its own identity and celebration. That's not just another tour stop. For Lisa's team, it's arguably the single highest leverage crossover placement available anywhere in entertainment in 2026. A chance to plant her flag, quite literally, on American mainstream culture's biggest annual stage, at the exact moment the nation is most self-consciously asking what American even means. Part 5. Stage design and production scale, 13,000 to 1630. Behind any ceremony of this size sits a production operation most viewers never think about. FIFA handed creative direction of all three 2026 opening ceremonies to the same team responsible for the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics earlier that same year, a deliberate choice to bring Olympic-level ceremonial storytelling into a soccer tournament that had never attempted anything like it before. The Los Angeles show opened with a costumed representation of George Washington, flanked by a red and blue drumline crowned with a single gold star, alongside a spoken introduction, highlighting the diversity, culture, and founding principles of the host nation, a direct, unmistakable nod to the semi-quincentennial happening in parallel with the tournament itself. From there, the show shifted gears entirely. An inflatable World Cup trophy, wrapped in American motifs, rose above a stage full of dancers dressed in red, white, blue, and gold as the tournament's official pump-up anthem played. Then came the sequence built specifically around Lisa, performed alongside two other international artists, staged against a rotating backdrop of American city skylines and landmarks, a visual choice that placed a global pop star literally inside projected images of the country itself, blurring the line between American celebration and global spectacle by design, not by accident. The ceremony closed with all 48 qualified nations' flags raised and named in sequence, followed by a headline pop performance built around a genuine viral moment. A global superstar sharing the closing number with a 10-year-old singer flown in from Norway, before the national anthems of the two competing nations sent the crowd into the actual soccer match. In total, the ceremony ran under 20 minutes. Every second of it was engineered for maximum replay value online. And this is where the story gets genuinely suspenseful, because the spectacle doesn't end in Los Angeles. FIFA has already confirmed that Independence Day itself, July 4th, will bring dedicated American history-themed programming to two rounds of 16 matches, one in Philadelphia, at a stadium temporarily renamed for tournament neutrality, and one in Houston. Both cities are being positioned as centers of the national celebration that day, with Philadelphia doubling as the literal birthplace of the country, and Houston representing its modern, diverse present. What hasn't been confirmed, as of this recording, is exactly who will perform at either show. That detail remains one of the most anticipated announcements left in the tournament, and it's easy to see why, after Los Angeles, expectations for whatever comes next on July 4th are enormous. Whether FIFA leans further into global crossover bookings or pivots toward a more explicitly American lineup for the anniversary itself is, right now, genuinely an open question, and one worth watching closely. What is confirmed is the scale of where all of this is heading. The tournament's grand finale, the World Cup final on July 19th at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, will feature the first-ever official World Cup halftime show, curated by a major Western pop producer and headlined by some of the biggest names in global music, supporting an international education charity tied to the tournament. Taken together, the semi-quincentennial year hasn't just given America a backdrop for the World Cup. It's given FIFA a reason to build the single most ambitious ceremonial calendar in the tournament's history. Part 6, the new definition of a global icon. Step back far enough, and this whole story stops being about one performance slot on one night in June. It becomes a case study in something much bigger, what cultural diplomacy actually looks like in 2026. For most of the 20th century, national milestones were told through national voices, orchestras, anthems, homegrown icons standing in for the country itself. What FIFA did in Los Angeles, deliberately or not, tested a different model, that a nation's biggest celebration can be told partly through global voices, on the theory that the nation itself is no longer a closed story. Whether you find that inspiring or uncomfortable depends less on the facts of the case and more on which version of American culture you believe deserves the microphone in a milestone year. What's genuinely new here isn't that a foreign artist performed at an American event. That's happened plenty of times before. What's new is the scale, the timing, and the symbolism all converging in the same 18-minute window. A Thai superstar, trained in Seoul, backed by an American label she partly owns, performing songs about a global tournament, framed by American founding imagery. In the X year, the country is asking itself what 250 years of independence actually means. That convergence is what turned one booking into a genuine, ongoing cultural conversation. Not a scandal, not a hoax, just a real disagreement happening in real time, in comment sections and group chats across the country. Whatever happens on July 4th in Philadelphia and Houston, one thing already seems true. The old definition of a global icon, someone famous everywhere but truly rooted nowhere, is being rewritten in real time, on stages exactly like the one FIFA built in Los Angeles this June. So here's the actual question worth asking, and it's the one we want to leave you with. In a year built entirely around celebrating one country's history, was putting a global icon on that stage a sign of how far American culture has always reached, or a sign of how much of that celebration is being shaped by forces outside the country itself? Let us know where you land in the comments, and if you want us to come back the moment FIFA confirms who's actually taking the stage on July 4th, drop a comment below and subscribe, because that announcement is coming, and it's going to be a big one.